Keith's like, you better learn how to do the video stuff.
Oh my
And
God.
fast.
No kidding.
Yeah. But we just did one with like Amanda Treppa, who's running for like District 10.
Yeah.
We just did one with her. So yeah, and like I look at even those arenas that I never would have ended up in.
And it's the experiences that you get through that. This,
Right.
like, look at this, like all of this. This just landed into like to walk you through it. Like, this is how it all started. I started doing content just because I needed to brand myself. Nobody knew who I was. I was in an industry where so many people knew who I was. Like, people said they needed to hire me. They would say, I need to hire a Jason Tracy in my industry. I could go anywhere nationwide in the wireless industry and people would know who I was. You know, somebody would know who I was. And then but I didn't want to be a part of that industry. So then I come out and I'm trying to, you know, I'm going into these communities and nobody knows who I am. And then like, how do you share who you are and the impact you've had without sounding like you're just this guy that talks all the time and talks about you all the time, you know? And so I need to create content. Well, I don't love sitting and creating the video by myself. You know, like I just didn't get a lot of energy from that. And I did it and I was getting some results out of it, but like I just didn't love doing it. In the meantime, I'm having these conversations. I'm meeting people in the coffee shop, other business owners. I'm picking brains of other coaches and consultants, other entrepreneurs I see doing really awesome things. And I'm learning so much from them. But most importantly, I'm learning their story and I'm becoming a better person. I'm becoming a better business owner. I'm becoming a better husband, a better father, like all of that. I'm improving.
Right.
And then I start finding out nobody knows these stories. They don't know how to share these stories because they're in the same boat I'm in. You know, like how do I get out here and share this? So I went and I bought a GoPro.
Okay.
And I started going to coffee shops in my meetings. I'd have it in my backpack. And if we were having a really cool conversation, I'd say, hey, do you mind if I pull out my GoPro? I've got a mic and we can make some content and I'll cut some clips and I'll post and I'll tag you in. And mostly everybody would say, yeah, sure, let's do that. And so I would do it. And I just was putting the stuff out. And I was exposing myself to their network because I'm tagging them in, but then I'm telling their story. And so, and then I was having these conversations and I'd have hours of conversation taped and I'd only put out a few clips from each conversation. And I was telling a friend, like, what do I do with all this? Like, I feel like it's wasteful. I've got all this content. What do I do with it? And he's like, dude, put it up as a podcast. There's this platform. You can put it up. And so he led me to that. I kept on doing the podcast until I was like, oh my God, I've got 9 episodes I need to edit because I've got a GoPro. I stopped doing the meeting up at the coffee shops and I started doing just my office space and I called it Coffee and Grit. That's when it became official. And I had this GoPro on the desk and I had my mics and it was just this amateur setup. I did almost 60 episodes like that. 99% of podcasts quit before the 6th episode. And so I did almost 60 episodes with my GoPro in Coffee and Grit. And I had like 9 episodes that I had to edit. And I was like so exhausted from doing it. And I'm like, I'm going to quit. Like there's like, I don't want to keep doing it. Like there's so much work I've got to keep putting into it. And then, you know who Terry Bean is?
That sounds so familiar.
So Terry Bean, he's a speaker and he runs the TEDx Detroit.
Okay.
And he does coaching and stuff like that. Super cool guy. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, I would love to be on your podcast. I'm like, well, I can't quit now. Like he was one of the guys that I had on my list of like, I'd love to have him on. He has a big network. I want to get out there, right? In that same day, I meet up. I had a meeting with Rob Johnson. Rob had reached out to me and wanted to meet up. And so I met him up over at his office. And he's like, hey, you know, I've been watching your podcast. I love it. He's like, I've been seeing the high quality guests you've been having on. He's like, man, I'd love to have those people walking in my space. He's like, why haven't you ever came here? And I'm like, because I have this podcast and I'm getting business out of it, but I'm not making any money at it. And so to pay this amount of money would be like, that's a big gamble. And he's like, well, what if I sponsored it for you and I let you come in and do the podcast, you know, for free? I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not quitting.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so for like 2.5 out of my 3 years there, he gave it to me, right?
Wow.
However, I only get 1 episode. And so what happens out of this is I build these relationships. I have this great quality content. I start getting, Kevin reaches out to me and is like, hey, I want to create content out of it. My biggest pet peeve is people come on the show. We're on for an hour and a half and they don't do anything with that. Like I just pulled the best out of you. Like I pulled some pretty good content out of you and you're not going to do anything with that. And I would sit and complain about it. And I was complaining about it to Kevin. One day we were at BCAT and I'm like, it's my biggest pet peeve, these people. And then I'll run into them and they'll be like, oh, I got to make video. Oh, I got to, you know, like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you have an hour of content where I could just like pick a dot and find a 30-second clip.
Yeah.
Like I could pull a random 30-second clip and it will be a good one. That's how good these conversations are, and you're not maximizing it. And Kevin's like, why aren't they? And I'm like, because it's hard. And I'm like, because they don't know what editing tools, and there's so many, and it can get really lost on just that. And then when you get there, you don't even know they don't see what I see. They don't see the story that I know is going to really pull people in. Right. They see that story and think, oh, that's just that story. I'm like, no, that's the gold. You got to put that one out there. That's going to pull people in.
Right.
So when I go out and create content, I'm putting this stuff out there that they may not have chosen to put out there. And so Kevin's like, so what does that tell you? And I'm like, that I'm missing a whole opportunity. And so I formed out this service that as people came on, it's free for the podcast, it's free to come on. If you want to create content out of it, create content out of it. However, I've made it easy for you. And I put these packages together where you can choose, and I will create content for you. So there's 3 different packages depending on what you want. And I can create the clips. I started creating clips. Guess what happened?
They weren't posting the clips.
They weren't posting the clips. Why weren't they posting the clips? Because they didn't know what to write with them. And so I'm like, okay, I learned a lesson. Like, now my package comes with videos and the written content to go with it. Now all you have to do is copy and paste, and you can edit and put your own stuff in. But it's going a level of mastering their voice that I can create, just like with yours. I can create a post that sounds like it was you that wrote it.
Right.
And so that's what if now. This whole metamorphosis, as I was sitting there, like, oh my God, I've got this opportunity to make money, but I can only have one time in the studio that I'm now paying for. And I've got so many clients that they're not necessarily ready for the podcast, but they need to get content out there. Right. They need to start forming their story. They need to start making posts. They need to start doing this thing. And I can't get them all in at one time. And then Kevin's like, hey, how about we open up a studio?
Yeah.
And so tell me that I wasn't meant to do this.
Right.
Like, because I keep getting things handed to me, like.
It's, yeah. If you turn your back on that, on what like the universe is trying to tell you.
Yeah.
I think you only get so many chances at it, but the universe will come at you pretty strong, right? And like throw these gifts or whatever, but it's your job to pick up on it. It's your job to, you would be doing a disservice by not moving forward, right? And helping people.
But how many people ignore those voices and those signs?
Too many. I think a lot of us, right? I know, like, even when you wrote that, that one post for me, and I sat on it for how many months? Because I'm like, no one's going to like it, blah, blah, blah. And then I wouldn't even look at the post. And you sent me a message, and I'm like, oh, man. So, but I think, like, I think about myself, right? And I was in this corporate environment for so long. And I think a lot of times in corporate, like, you don't bring your life in because you don't ever want to be singled out. You don't ever want to be weak. I know even like when I started having, my kids, my boss, when I had my first son, my boss is like, just work 4 days in the office and 1 at home and just take care, kind of just. And I'm like, no, because I'll be weak. Mm-hmm. I'll be weak. It'll look weak. And I didn't want to come across as weak because at the end of the day, I still, didn't want to give them any reason to let me go. Like, we're talking about being a mom here, like your family, you're, nurturing your kids, and you're afraid to be let go. Yeah. And I feel like that is really like the corporate world, right? Even when I worked at, for GM and I ended up being let go, I was going through a horrendous divorce.
But they don't see the people.
No, they don't see the people. They don't see the stories. I did everything I could to keep my divorce out of it because I didn't want to be a weak link. And, and then, like I said, I worked for the same company for 16 years and never lost my job. And then in the course of a year, I lost my job twice. One through GM, and then I worked at that, for a startup. And they let me go in front of my daughter.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
No. My daughter was in the car. My manager scheduled a meeting with me a little bit after hours, which was normal, right? And so I just dropped my boys off at golf. I've got my daughter in the car. You know, I pull over, get on a Zoom, and it's just me and my manager. I said, hey, you know, Michael, my daughter, you know, he could see her, and I could tell the look on his face. And then HR showed up, and I literally like, right now. And I will never put myself in that position again. It's still, you know, it chokes me up. Like, this has been a year and a half now. And, you know, for my kid to see that, never again. And so, you know, getting into like what I'm doing now is not what I ever thought. Trust me, I think when I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I think I'm making a mistake. But yeah, it's been a journey. It isn't even about sales anymore. To be honest, it isn't. It's been about just growth, my growth, networking, finding my new family, and like those people that will go to bat for you every single time. And like that, I've learned more in the last year than I have in 20 plus years of corporate. And it's cool. It's really cool.
That is so cool. And it's so cool because the things that you mentioned, like you came to my office and you're like, I'm the back end. I'm like the back. I'm the product design. I'm back here. I'm not the sales. I'm not in front of people. And then for me to watch as you found your niche, you started finding your tribe, you're finding your family. All of a sudden, I see you everywhere in the community. All these people are like, have you met Kristie? I'm like, yes, I have. You know, to see that happening to me was so cool to see you have breakthroughs, because I've watched you through the valleys, and then I've watched you have the breakthroughs, and because it's all a process going through this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, first of all, I always cleaned up the mess that sales made.
Yeah.
That's always been my job, right? And that's fine. And I actually got a lot of fulfillment out of that, right? I love to fix things. Like, give me a problem and I'm going to fix it for you. And I'm going to find probably 3 different ways to fix it. But yeah, all of a sudden now, you know, I move into a field that is traditionally kind of slimy, right? I mean, credit card processing, you know, do I need to say anything else? But you know, and I know like some of our initial discussions, it was very much like, you know, why am I doing this? I don't think this is me. But, and I can remember coming to boot camp and like nearly being in tears. And I'm like, oh, he said no, but he didn't really say no. And you'd be like, all right, Kristie, come on. And I, you know, it just was so dramatic, but it really didn't need to be. But in my head, it was so much more than what I was making out, you know, what I was making it out to be was like a lot more than what it really was.
Yeah. Our minds do that. They like unravel and make it so much bigger.
Yeah, for sure. And so, but I do really think, you know, yes, I have this side where like, if I am not closing sales, right, I don't get paid. Mm-hmm. That is the reality. I think it's the reality for any entrepreneur, right?
Yep.
If your cash register isn't ringing, you will have to find another way. And trust me, I exhausted every resource before I think I fully surrendered to just doing what I had to do. And that is, you know, showing up at networking events. My first networking event, I sat in my car for, 40 minutes.
Yep. Did you go in?
I did go in.
Good for you.
And you know
All
what?
Right.
I ended up actually meeting a bookkeeper in line, trying to get a glass of wine just to calm myself down. She turns around and I go, this is my first event. Very dramatic. But anyway, we started talking, and actually she ended up referring one of her clients to me. So I was
first person you met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it doesn't always happen that way. But but yeah, but every time I like exercise that networking muscle, right? Now I go in, it doesn't bother me. We're all friends, or even if I walk into a new networking event where I don't know anybody, it's still fine. I actually will go find the other wallflower, because that's usually me, and yeah, and strike up some kind of conversation. But I never go in thinking I'm going to sell something, or I go in and immediately my brain goes, once we start talking, is who can I put into your path that might be able, maybe you can do business with them, or maybe they can help you. It doesn't, not everyone's like that. That whole giver's gain, we've talked a lot about that. But not everyone embraces it. And you can you figure it out pretty fast who's in it and who's not. But I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I'll always give, even, and there's never any expectation to receive back. So, yeah.
And I think for years and years, going back to when I was a sales director, I would tell, like, when I would train new people, I would tell them my basic thoughts and frameworks around the way we operate. And the one of my core things I'd say is, when we do good things for people, it comes back around for us. And I'm not saying, hey, you one day you're knocking on Kristie's door, knock, knock. Hey, remember that good thing I did for you? It's time to pay back. No, you just go out and you do good things for people, and you don't expect return. And every time I've ever done that without expecting return, and I'm just going out and I'm giving, it creates that law of reciprocity, is what it's called. That law of, like, not everybody thinks that way, to your point. However, there are so many people that do certain types of business, and as you meet those people and you fall into your tribe, that's how you found, those are the difference makers. Those are the people that you're like, oh, those are my people.
Right. And I, one of my favorite people that I've met, right, is Keisha Pulaski from Batteries Plus. And she and I can't do business together, right? But what we've formed is this, like, we go out together and we just call on businesses together. We are not competing industries. We don't even make sense really in the same world, but she'll go to, where the shop guys are. I'll go to the front office. Sometimes we walk in together. We've met a lot of people's dogs. People offer us drinks, and all of a sudden, it's actually a lot of fun to do it that way. So, like, just to have somebody, but to just, when you want to give up, or you're just like, it's cold out, and
When you have an accountability partner, when you saw that there's somebody with you.
Yeah, but that's somebody I didn't even know that existed, and it's fun. Right. And then all of a sudden, like, I've had people come up to me and they'll say, I heard you go door to door, and I'm like, yes, I do. And they're like, could you show me how? Like, you want me to show you how? I'm like,
I only laugh because it's so true. You're out there, you're doing the things, and that's the progress that you've made, is that you're now setting the example where people see you as, can you show me?
Right.
And it's funny to us because we've seen where you were like, you needed people to show you,
Right. And even I think that first boot camp of yours that I walked into, Cody Powers was there.
Yeah.
And we were talking about his cold calling. And I think actually that's what sucked me into your boot camp, I'll be honest, because, here's Cody, who I could just totally relate to, just being himself. I think he said something like, hey, don't hang up on me. Yes, this is a cold call. And just being that, like, vulnerable and that just natural about it, because at the end of the day, we all sell in some capacity. You just do. But admitting you don't like it, admitting, though, that it is part of the job, and then just having some fun with it. And now, a lot of times, too, when I walk in on my own, I, right off the bat, guess what? You know what? I'm going to be upfront with you. This is a cold call. And yes, we are going to talk about credit cards. And people, but they laugh, right?
Yep.
And it's funny. I'll talk to other people that do the same thing. And they'll say, hey, I hit like 40 or 50 doors today, and I got 40 or 50 no's. think, to be honest, I don't usually get that many no's. But I have a lot of conversations. But people are willing to have a conversation. We might be not a great fit, but I usually will walk away with a few to return back to. And I do think it's just walking in, kind of being a goofball about it. Like I said, there's a lot of people I don't do business with. I know their kids. I know their dogs now, but it's all a community.
Yeah.
So it's not always, I feel like the business piece comes as a byproduct of knowing your community.
It does. That's a big part. You started in greening and you started going into that community again. I'd have to imagine this has happened to a degree. Is your cold calling all of a sudden as you're doing you're building the relationships? How warm does it get? Like, or how many people know you as you walk in?
Right. So, there are people in like certain industries, I guess. So that's kind of cool because a lot of times, like, I can go in and say, hey, I do the processing for so-and-so or so-and-so. And like that easily will open a door for me because those individuals are very trusted within the industry.
Yeah.
So that's been really nice to build those relationships out. A lot of times just, I've walked into places and find out that our kids are in the same classroom together. Yeah. So now you have to see me every day at pickup.
Yeah.
But, and that's really, I don't know, that's what has actually brought me joy to doing what I'm doing. Like I said, knowing that I'm doing the right thing for people, that fuels me, right? When I go in and I ask for a statement and then I look at that and, somebody's paying almost 9%, like that's crazy. But then you're also building a lot of trust very quickly because this person has obviously been screwed by somebody else in your industry. They don't even know where to go. And now you're trying to get them to trust you. And so a lot of times it's not going to be done in a single visit or 2 visits or 3 visits, but like consistently showing up, consistently not saying, you need to sign here, but just showing that I truly care, that I live down the street, that when you have an issue, I'm going to show up in 10 minutes and fix your issue for you. That has really kind of just brought it all together. So it's when I look at like a whole sales cycle and it starts with a cold call, but it ends with, now I walk in and you call me, the credit card girl and you give me a hug, then I don't know. I mean, that says a lot. That's not something I ever thought I would get out of this.
That's huge. And, in thinking with, I'm glad you mentioned, first off, this is phenomenal. You're doing awesome. Thinking of that, and you're talking about like consistently showing up, and then you mentioned getting that hug and the credit card girl. And I think of that story of showing up to somebody that kept pushing you off.
Right. And I took that so personally, and that's crazy to me. That was one of my first, big sales, showing up as a cold call, being told that it's you people keep showing up here or calling. But he said, come back tomorrow, I'll get you a statement. I came back the next day, no statement. Came back the next day, no statement. When I finally got it, I did a whole analysis on it. And I could, he was not interested in passing the fee on to his customers. He's like, I'm going to lose customers by doing this. And I said, okay, you don't have to do that. It's an option. And then the other option was that, I could lower your fees by about $4,000 a year. And he said, no, it's not enough. Like, what do you mean it's not $4,000? And But I kept going back because he never truly said no. And then in the end, there was some changes with, legislature and small business owners, right? They're now paying for paid time off and minimum wage went up. And by just continually checking with him, one day we had a conversation. He said, I got to figure out where I'm going to find an extra 80 grand. I said, well, we've talked about this. And it was a huge leap, I think, for him to trust me enough. And I said, hey, we can, make some changes and we'll pass the fee on to your customers. They always have the option to pay by card, or there's no fee for cash, right, or check. At the end of the day, you're giving your people an option how they want to pay, but you're running your business. So either A, you raise your prices for everybody to find this extra 80 grand, or you make this one change to a subset of your customers, and the people that want to pay with cash get to pay with cash. And that trickled into things I never would have. I only ever saw it as money savings for him. Mm-hmm. I never saw it as anything else. And then having some time go by and checking in. Yes, walking in the door and like getting hugged. You're the credit card girl. But what they were telling me was like at the end of the night, instead of paying, instead of being there for an hour and a half doing, adding in tips and things like that from all of the receipts that day, they were out in 5 minutes because we automated it. Their groomers were making more money because we automated some of that as well. That to me, my brain goes deep, right? So all of a sudden I'm like, wow, maybe somebody got to take a family vacation this year because they were making more money. And then they got to spend time with their family because, I think about the ripples and I thought that was cool. And then we talked about customer retention. And I said, do you think you lost customers? And the answer was no. Yes, they lost a couple, but they were the ones that they wanted to go away anyway. And they said, these were people that were also business owners, also charged the fee, by the way, but they couldn't stand that, this particular business was doing that. And they left. And they said it was a relief because they were rude to our staff. They were, we didn't need them around anyway. And then we didn't have to tell them to, get lost. So those were always things I just never, like I said, I always thought it was a money thing. It's not a money thing. Not always. Even yesterday, I had a conversation with somebody and he flat out told me, he said, the money piece isn't even why we're talking to you. It's that you're going to streamline a whole process for us so that my, admin here isn't constantly dealing with, billing and things are automated. That means more to us than the savings. So I'm constantly reminded, it's not always about money. And then being able to, when there is an issue, I really focus on my community where I can be somewhere within 15, 20 minutes tops. And I always have an extra machine in my car, or I have an extra roll of paper. I get calls on a Sunday. Hey, remind me what size paper I use. Oh, am I reminding you because you're out? Probably. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'll have all my kids in tow, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And I like that,
When you've hit on so many things here in laying out how you're a difference maker, and one I want to highlight real quick is how you talked about how you envision how they can use that money, whether it's an extra vacation with the family or you listed off a couple of things there, and I think that is the thing that's going to makes you the absolute difference maker, because how many other people that are working, we laughed and joked at the beginning about credit card processing, right. And I've had clients from that industry that have hired me to work with their salespeople, mm-hmm. and with multiple different clients, and so I know what that industry is like, and I know that there are people that are just doing it to make money or whatever, and so to see you're literally thinking about the client, which is at the end of the day, That's how you become a difference maker, and that's how you make a biggest difference in their business. And then the byproduct of that is that you get clients,
Right.
that you feed your family and all that kind of stuff
Right.
because you're doing what's right for your people.
Right. And I do believe that, I belong to all of these Facebook groups, right? With that, there's 26,000 merchant service providers. And I see all the chatter and I see the people, breaking into, I'm trying to break into this industry. They're usually gone within a couple months.
Yep.
It is a cutthroat industry, especially because most companies, so most people go to work for a larger company. That's not what I do, right? I'm a small, community focus. Regal's been around for 16 years, right? But our clients rarely leave because we do the right thing from the beginning. That's the thing, and I see it a lot where people say, I got them at this percentage rate. But as soon as you figure it out as a business owner, sooner or later, you're going to figure it out that you've been taken. What good does that do me, right? Mm-hmm. My goal is to keep you for the life of your business. I'm not, so why am I going to do the wrong thing for you up front? I'm always going to do the right thing for you because I'm not trying to, feed how do I think how to phrase this? But I want you for the long haul.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, you were explaining, I got totally what you're saying. And it goes back to when you're saying even the people that you're networking with in business, that not everybody has the same go-giver mentality. And that's what, when I talk about Difference Maker Bootcamp, that's how the whole name, the Difference Maker thing comes about is, and literally, and you talk about like finding things on accident. I was putting together a seminar or a speaking engagement for this group in Ann Arbor. And the title of it, I put, stop talking the talk and walk the walk, be the difference. Mm-hmm. And I ended up shortening. I'm like, be the difference. That's actually because there are so few people that have that mentality, that think outside of that box, to think like, it's not about getting you into this sale and whoo, I got the sale. No, it's about that long term. It doesn't do me any good to be dishonest to you or to stretch the truth or to just get this sale, because I want to have you for the life of the sale. I want you to refer your friends to me. I want to have this relationship, and that's the true difference maker when you're out there, when you're doing the business development, when you're in business. That's what truly makes you different. Mm-hmm. And you think it'd be common, but it's just like common sense. It's not common. And that's why it's so easy to do really well in business when you have a heart and mind like you do. Right.
And I appreciate that you see that, right? Because that is how I try to lead is with my heart, with my sense of community. But yeah, I have to sleep at the end of the night, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to know that, what I've done right, for you. And I never have, I sleep very well at night because I know that I haven't put you on hardware that doesn't work right for your business. And if it does, you're going to call me and we're going to talk through it. And you know what? And sometimes we're just not a match.
Yep.
And that's okay. And at the end of a month, then we go our separate ways. I don't ever put people in contracts. Either it works or it doesn't. And there's no hard feelings. So, but the majority, yes, do I have a couple that I've lost along the way because their needs didn't quite match with mine. And sometimes you don't know that until after an install. And that's okay.
Yep.
And, it's just... but I feel good, right? Nobody's going to yell at me. Like, I'm not going to have a manager come and yell at me for like, why did you do that? I don't have to get approval from anybody to reverse something.
Yep.
I'm making the decisions. I know I'm doing what's right. And so there's a lot to be said about that. And it's funny, like I've walked into places, told people what I've done. Most people are like, oh, but like I've got a little bakery, and she's like, "Where have you been? I've been waiting for someone to walk in." Like, really? And so because she's like, do you know how many phone calls I get? She goes, do you think I want to give anybody my personal information over the phone that I've never met? But she's like, you come in here and, and we have a conversation. You're a real person. I do the install. I do the training. I stay on as your first line of support. Although, we've got 24/7 US based support that somebody's going to answer the phone every single time.
Yep.
We're going to find a solution. And that gives me a lot of gratification. I know, I'm not out there saving lives or anything like that, but maybe like as a business owner, if that's like one piece that you don't have to think about in your business,
1,000%.
like I feel really good about that.
Yep.
And I know like we've talked, right? My parents, they were entrepreneurs. They left corporate after 30 years, and in their retirement, they opened up businesses and constantly, there was just always this air of distrust.
Mm-hmm.
Every person that walked through the door, everybody even that they did business with, they just always distrusted people because there was so much nickel and diming. And so, and in fact, after I finished school, that's why I said, I don't want to work for myself. I just want to work for a company. I just want to get a paycheck and have a 401k and health insurance. And maybe it just doesn't work that way, right? Maybe it just doesn't. And that's...
Well, there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
You get that safety for the trade-off of they own you, and
Yeah.
you were telling that story earlier, and it's funny because as I think as an entrepreneur and like you have to bring your kids somewhere and stuff like that, there's so much grace in situations because we all get it kind of deal. But then as I realized you're talking about corporate America, like, oh no, they will see weakness, they will fire you. Like you can't do that. No, like that. And that just speaks for the coldness of that. But
Yeah.
you had mentioned something a little bit ago, or at the very beginning, you had said, like, I'm a problem solver. And I think so many people don't realize that the biggest trait, the biggest skill that a great business development, or say great salesperson could have is being a problem solver.
Right.
And because you're literally looking at it in so many different ways. You're literally like when you go in, you can find how you can serve your client at the best level. And I love how you said at the beginning, like how you thought it was more about money and saving money, and then along the way, and I know through boot camp, there's been several situations where like, oh, like the tow truck driver, there's a situation here where it's a different opportunity.
Right. And that's even that. I love those people. Like they are just so kind. And that was a cold call. That was after I did their statement, right? I could only save them like $40 a month. And I remember having a conversation with you where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go back in. And I didn't go back in for a while. And then finally, I would drive by, and if I saw a car there, I'd swing by. But finally, I did go back in. And they said, oh, we've been waiting for you to stop back in. So then I felt really bad. But when we sat down, $40, like, who am I to judge what $40 means to you? That's not my place. And so now, because to them, it was a big deal. And then in having the further conversations, they weren't getting paid for 3 days. So if they ran a charge, it didn't show up in their account for 3 or 4 days. We do next day funding. So that was a bigger deal for them. That we never really talked about until here we are signing the contract. And I'm like, okay, you're going to get next day funding. And she's like, wait, what? Her son had to walk in the room, and she's like, oh, this is our son. He does the tow truck for us. And I'm like, well, wait a second. How do you collect payment? And so all of a sudden it was like all of these opportunities were just popping up where, for me, it was super easy to see it. And again, had I walked away over $40, right, or not gone back in there over $40,
Yeah.
I would have been really upset with myself. Like I would have really done a disservice to them.
One is it's so funny because we get in our heads and you're like, oh, I won't go back out there, and then they're waiting for you, and that's a lot of times we don't, and that's what I love about sales from that mindset of like when going through the boot camp and like having that next step. And if you can set a next step and you have an appointment, or you know that you said I will call you on Wednesday, now instead of feeling like you're bothering them, because that's what happens
Right.
from a psychological standpoint, like, oh, I can't call them now, they're probably busy. But if you say I'm going to call you at this time, now it's if you don't call, then you went against your word, your integrity, like you're letting them down. And if you can flip the way that you're viewing that, it makes a huge difference.
Right. And I think so much of this is a mind game. We project kind of what we think is going on onto, our customers, our potential customers. And that's not the case. You have to get outside of your own head.
Yep.
Because what's important to me isn't always what is important to you. And it's not for me to tell you what's important to you. It's for you, and it goes down that whole kind of cycle. And that probably has been one of the biggest lessons I've learned. My job is to present, all the options. And, maybe I can, guide you a certain way. But ideally, what I do is I present all of the options that I know are going to make a difference. But ultimately, you need to make the choice for what's going to work for you. Just because I think it's going to work better this way, it's not always the case.
True story.
And so that's why I also try to stay really flexible with options too. There's people that we've put in one solution and then their business doesn't take off. They want to pivot. And so I can easily just flip a different solution on them where that works. And I like having that, that flexibility, that mindset. It's not rigid. And like it or not, getting paid in your business is really, it's kind of the foundation.
Yeah. Well, and as entrepreneurs, we get so dicey about asking for money, but we don't feel bad about asking for money when we go punch a clock.
Right.
Everybody knows that we need to get paid. The people that are doing business with us know we need to get paid. And if they don't care if we get paid, then they're not the right clients. Like, especially since if we're doing businesses with other small businesses, which we're doing, we're in business where we're working with other businesses. And so if they don't get it, if they don't understand from that level, then they're not a client that you want anyways. Right. But I love in going into, you had said another key thing, because you can be a problem solver. But the key thing that happens, and when we go into business development mode, when we go into that sales mode, is we ignore the biggest thing that's going to help us solve problems. If we go into sales mode and we're thinking about the sale and the dollar at the end, we're not solving problems. We're going into sales. We're trying to sell something, and we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. If we can solve a problem, we can actually sell the solution. We actually have an opportunity. But in order to find the problem, we've got to ask the questions.
Right.
And you had mentioned when I go in, I ask a bunch of questions because it's not just about the money. There's another route in there. And if you can find it, then you'll get the business.
Right.
And if you don't, then you don't have enough to get them to emotionally buy. Somebody was asking me yesterday, when somebody says, I don't have time for you, or somebody doesn't respond back to you, like, it's just human nature. We all get busy. We all get messages and stuff like that in our box, and like there's so many things but how do you become so unignorable that like if I don't call this person, it's life or death, right? Like if I don't call this person, like I'm going to miss out on a huge opportunity. Like how do you become that person?
Right.
And it's through a process of serving.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, like, that's just been through experience over the last year. But I truly believe now, and it's been through like, spending time with you in boot camp and also listening to other people's stories, like people that I've met along the way, and, here they're in this journey of starting as well. And I think a lot of that too is once you can find your passion or what lights you up about something, then it does become this drive, this driving force to do what's right. even, you might be teetering on the edge of, annoyance, but it's because you believe in what you're doing so much.
Yes.
Right. And I think we talked a little bit, I've got a guy who's paying almost 9%, but he's really slow to get back with me. I'll walk in his shop and he'll say, "Oh, I told you I still got your card. I'll call you. I'll call you." But it's killing me to know that he's giving somebody who was dishonest with him, $1,500 a month. And it's not even my money, right? And it's driving me crazy to see, just to see that. And so, yes, I will continue to annoy him because I know I'm doing the right thing for him.
And that's when it comes down at the end of the day. It's like when it's doing the right thing for him versus like it's going to fill my pocket. Because at the end of the day, we do need to eat.
Right. Oh, yeah.
We do need to close these sales. We're not doing this just completely for the goodwill, right? Like, we're doing this like, because let's be honest, like if you weren't getting paid for this, you would probably be doing other things. There's like like we all would, like, because we might love what we're doing, but if we're not getting paid doing it, we move on to other things. We've got to get paid to do it, but you should get paid at a high level because of the services that you're doing and how you're taking care of clients and you're putting their needs first, and that's the byproduct.
Right. And and I was just thinking back to when we're talking about like fighting for money, right? When I was punching a clock and I checked my my check and it was $30 short. You didn't pay. You missed something. I would fight for that $30.
Yep.
And so I think people should want to, to fight for that in their own business too.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of times we just are like, whatever. And so I guess I'm maybe my role is to be that person that kind of fights for you. Sometimes I'm going to have to hold your hand through it and bring you over the finish line. But but you're a small business owner. You're important to the community. You need to fight for, your even the small dollars, because at the end of the day, those things, you can add an extra 2 to 4%, to your bottom line just by paying attention to your credit card processing, right? Something that simple. You don't have to raise your prices. You don't have to, invent something new to bring in additional revenue. Just pay attention to those few costs, and that helps your bottom line. Just taking some ownership in that. And you don't have to be an expert, to do those things. Yes, you have to build trust with somebody. And, and I hope because I'm in this community, because I show my face, I never call on the phone. I'll be honest. I come in because I want you to see a face. And that really is the truth to all of this. And like I said, the cool part is I get to walk into a lot of cool stores. I get to meet so many cool people, meet a lot of cool dogs. And I have hobbies and things outside of this, right? And I've met people now who I get to do go on photography trips and things like that because we have that to talk about. So it's just building a human connection.
Yeah.
That's really all this is.
It's all it is. All it is.
And then my mind never shuts down. I'm always thinking about, okay, who can I introduce to you? You never know where interactions or introductions can come from.
You have no idea how the world works. I went to, so we talked about Crystal Meyer. Do you know Abigail Hathaway?
Yes.
So I went to Abigail turned 33 yesterday. And she's 33 years old and she's never had a birthday party thrown for her in her life. Like she grew up an orphan, a ward of the state, didn't have parents, that kind of thing. Well, so this is a really, really cool story. So they met at an event that I spoke at. They connected. And then they ended up running into each other at another event and having a conversation. And Abigail had been on my podcast telling her story about being an orphan and and so she was telling Crystal this story. And Crystal was adopted.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And she didn't know that until late in life.
Yeah.
And so she finds that out. And so she had told me that story, but she's like, oh, I can't share that. It's, and I had asked her to be on the podcast and she was like, no, and then she called me up and she was on fire. She's like, oh my God, I just met Abigail. She was like on fire. She was like, she told me this story. I've got to get on the podcast and share my story. So they both had shared the story. Well, they end up building this relationship and literally Crystal's looking into a way to adopt Abigail as an adult. Abigail came to they were meeting up and Crystal was like, what are you doing for Christmas? And she's like, oh, I don't have a family. I don't do anything. So Crystal's like, well, you're coming to my house. And so now she's come to Thanksgiving this year. She's coming to Christmas this year. They do all these kind of things together. Crystal threw a birthday party for her last night and 15 people showed up to this birthday party. And it was like, it's so cool to see. But wow, just a connection that happened in the community, in the business community, that has now turned into this life-changing. It's so cool to see. It's like, it's super emotional, but it's the ways that people can change their lives is insane.
It is. And, I, went through a divorce. I went through a very, very tough divorce. And, there were a lot of things that I thought was, that were really shameful and things like that. And I didn't want to talk about it. And all of a sudden, I'm in these rooms with people that are, have gone through it or are getting ready to go through it. And then I realized too, maybe that's really what this is about, right? Is finding people in your tribe that you get to help. There were people when I was going through my situation that just showed up, right? And I got to learn from their experience. And now, I've got 2.5 years behind me, and there are people that are getting ready to go through these same things. And when you start talking and you realize that what's happened to you isn't necessarily unique, but nobody wants to talk about the shameful stuff.
Yep.
And now you're having a conversation and you're like, oh my gosh, I went through that same thing that happened to me. It's really tough. But at the same time, it's really rewarding. And to be able to be there for somebody like that is pretty amazing. And, even in one of my corporate jobs, right? I went through, a sexual harassment type thing. And I worked in a predominantly male company and with a very small HR department with a very big mouth. And I came across as, the person. And that was horrible for me. And the shame that it created, it was turned around that, on me, even in my own marriage. And that was really tough.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not even something I talk about that much, but yeah. And so to be able to have conversations like that with other women, and, learn from even my mistakes. If I could do that over, there's so many things I would have done, but I felt so much shame from it. And a lot of therapy later, it was never me. It was never me. And, if I can have a conversation with one person and they recognize that it was never you, that makes this whole journey worth it. And so what starts off as, merchant services, it's just a means to an end. To me, the bigger journey has just been all the cool people I've met along the way, all the stories I've met along the way.
To me, that's the coolest part about it. And at the end of the day, we're doing business with people. And when you can build, you build your life, and it's enriched with these, from these last, will be 8 years in January. So 8 years and a couple of days that I've been in business, and the people that I'm around most of the time outside of my wife and son, are people I didn't know even existed. You're talking about, I didn't know Keisha existed.
Right.
I didn't know Cody existed. I didn't know, these people that have come into my life that have made such an impact existed. Yeah. But here they are. And now here they are, and they're showing up in a big way.
Right. And I think like when I look at like what you do, right? And I think you see the potential in what people have. And what's so cool about you is that you want people to fight for their future, right? There are so many times when I should have gone back to a corporate world, right? But like fight for yourself. Fight for what you bring to the table. Because I'll tell you what, it's your fire gets pretty much extinguished in the corporate world. And I mean, there's a place for it. It has to be there, right? You know, like you have to have your GMs and those. It just is what it is. But there's a whole other world out there that I certainly didn't know existed. And when you're kind of like on the with your boots on the ground, there is something to be said about people. It's so easy to give up, but it's really cool to have a cheerleader, right, pushing us to keep going even when we want to stop. And so like I look at you and that's what I think, like that's how I think of you, right? Like you're that person that says, just keep going. You're right on the edge. And I know there have been times I've come into boot camp and I'm like, I think I got to go find a job. I can't see that I'm that close, but you could see it. You could see the growth. And so I appreciate you. I really do.
I really appreciate that. It's like one of those things you see. I just got this image in my head of like being like a jump starter pack because like I've always known like what part of what I do is I have this belief in people that I without really even trying or realizing it, I want to give that energy and give you this belief that you can keep moving until you get that belief in yourself. And there's this, a few years ago when Jackson was still, I think he was in probably 7th grade, and he had just lost this basketball tournament, like the basketball tournament for the weekend, and he didn't get to play very much. And so he was on the bench most of the time. And so we got home and it was winter and it was freezing cold outside. And he's like, "Hey, Dad, can you move the cars? I'm going to go out and shoot baskets." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'll move the cars." But I'm like, I'm not going out there. Like it's freezing cold. I'm going to sit inside the house. And so I moved the cars and Jackson's out there and he was out there for maybe like 3 minutes. And I was on the couch with my feet kicked up. And I had this like thought of like, what am I doing? Like right. I'm sitting here on the couch. I'm not doing nothing, like it's not like I had anything to go to. Yeah, it's cold outside, but like in the reality of things is like, how much time do I really have left when Jackson's going to want me to come and play with him in the driveway, And so I'm like, put my shoes on and I go out. And as I go out there, I look and Jackson's just like shooting basket after basket. It was like, this energy had got into him and it was like this confidence and this like I don't know, there's like it was crazy. He was like hitting shot after shot after shot and he was like just getting the ball and shooting the shots, and I was out there rebounding and passing the ball and he was going after this, and we were out there for about an hour and a half, and he's just telling me, and he was like who who's out there? Who else is out there working? Who's out there? He's like, he's talking about, he's like, the problem wasn't me. He was like, I could sit and I could say that I didn't get to play because the coach didn't, the coach this or the coach that. And like, he's telling me this is a 7th grader. He's like, but at the end of the day, he was like, it was me. I didn't work hard enough. I didn't do what I needed to do. And so he was like, I can't blame other people. I've got to go out and I've got to put the work in. And he's like, just hitting shot after shot after shot. And he's telling me like, I'm going to commit. I'm going to be out here every single day for the next, however, I can't remember how long he said, but he did. He literally was out there every single day shooting hoops and playing basketball. And it was really cool to see. And then we did a run around the block. And when we got home, I got down on my knee and I looked at him and I was like, I'm so proud of you right now. And I'm like, like I love you unconditionally, right? Like I believe in you. Mm-hmm. Like I believe in you. Like I believe in in the people that I work with. Like I see it. But what makes me so proud of you right now is that for the first time, I can see that you believe in it as much as I believe it. And that's what's going to make the difference. Because I can stand here and believe in it all day, but when you believe in it, and I know there was points where I was like, let's go, Kristie. Oh my God, you speak it. And like, you're coming to the boot camp, you came into the cohort in Howell and you're like testifying. Yeah. And it was so cool to see that growth and that confidence.
But yeah, and it's funny. Like, I look back over this last year and where I started and where I am. And I know I've got a long way to go, but I think I truly found my purpose, right? And and how I fit into this community. And that says, I, I like that feeling, right? I like, and it's funny, like I'll be at the grocery store or something like that with my kids, and I'll always see people, and they're like, my kids will be like, why do you know so many people? And, where I went from like being a wallflower, I didn't ever want to know, I didn't want to run into people that I knew. And now, like, I love kind of going out and seeing people. If I go, up to BCAT, right? I
Yeah.
probably know 4 or 5 people at any given time that are all having coffee. And but that's what people should be about. And I think that's been my journey. I know now I can't go back to corporate. I, I, I would I would die. I would shrivel up and die.
I hear you.
I do love the flexibility, like the piece, the things with my kids. If my kids need me, before I would never call off. I would never miss things because, again, I didn't want to be weak.
Yeah.
I already felt like I had strikes against me because of, this or that. And I didn't want to give them an excuse. But at the end of the day, in corporate America, they're going to find a way to let you go, to meet their numbers, to meet their, what their board members say. You're nothing to them. But like when you get down to the community level, like you mean something at the community level.
Yep.
Like, if I go in every Monday at 4:00 and I sit down at the same restaurant or whatnot, like people come to, expect you to be there at 4.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just it's a really cool thing that I just didn't really know existed. I thought life was all about Walmart, Target, Chili's, But what about, these people that have started their own dreams, right? And they're making really beautiful artwork, or they're putting like beautiful food on the table for you.
Yeah.
Like it means something. That doesn't happen when you go to Applebee's.
5,000%.
Yeah.
You're not getting that heart. You're not getting the same heart and soul that you're getting from a small business owner.
Right. Or somebody, that makes, like great beer that can, like where we go, a group of us will go and we have a great time making great memories because of like just somebody's passion to make a great beer or wine.
Yep.
That's your community.
That's your community. So with the Howl Chamber, what has, speaking of community,
Yes.
what has the Howl Chamber kind of meant to your business and your path?
Right. And actually, the Howl Chamber is really something special, right? When I met Jen Nielsen up there, like it was just an instant connection. Like this was just somebody who you knew was looking out for you. I wasn't even a member yet. And I felt like this woman that I had just met was like looking out for me in a really sincere way. And then not only that, I had joined a couple other chambers at the time. And, each chamber's different. Each chamber has their struggles as well as, what's great about them. But there was just something really special about Howl and the community and the people they would bring together. And even I've been a member there now almost a year. And I definitely wouldn't have gotten this support anywhere else. Jen came to me and said, hey, would this be of benefit to you? I'm like, well, of course it would. And, and so like, and she helped set that up for me. And so it's just been really nice to have somebody looking out for you when, and that's part of the, on the entrepreneur side too, is sometimes it doesn't feel like people are looking out for you, but I know Howell's looking out for me. I get phone calls, from her just to even just check on me.
Yeah.
I get phone calls from her. Hey, I think I know somebody that might be just a great connection for you, and it'll be totally unsolicited, unexpected, and that just lets me know that like I matter there. I'm not just another check at the end of the year. And so bringing me to this, and then with the hub and everything like that, that's not as an entrepreneur, like it's not something that I could have afforded myself, right? And they have secured that funding that they put into people that they you know can benefit from it and deserve it and will turn around and do great things as well.
So with that, and with the hub program, you went to the boot camp with me, and then I think you're going through. We talked about it a little bit. You're going through Kevin's program right now, the growing a brilliant business. Tell me a little bit. So boot camp, we talked a little bit about it, but what was? And we went through boot camp. You went through boot camp with me before the Howl Chamber, and then tell me a little bit about what's that difference with the Difference Maker Bootcamp when you were at the Howl Chamber.
Right. So yeah, I did do, the one before that, but once we got into the one through the Howell Chamber, what was so cool was it was the same people, right? So we all grew together. I loved that. I loved learning everybody's, story and everybody's why, and even seeing everybody's individual growth. That was really cool. And there were people in there that our businesses just kind of meshed, and we became, like friends outside of the boot camp. We still talk. We still throw ideas off of each other. I wouldn't have gotten that any other way. And so I think that's why and it was in person, right? And I love in-person stuff. I think there's more, you can just read a lot more about people. And walls come down very quickly when you're in person. And so I think that was just such a nice way to set that up. But everyone felt so comfortable too, like when somebody would have a struggle, the rest of us could say, hey, we see this. You'd get 6 different, opinions, but also sometimes it's not about someone's opinion. Sometimes it's just saying, hey, I've been there. If you want to talk about it with me, I'm happy to do that. But yep, we've all been there. This isn't unique. Keep going. And now all of a sudden you've got cheerleaders.
And I saw that. I saw so many times that that people were meeting outside of the group, either before or after, or sometime during the week through that. That I've seen, and this wasn't even a thought when I created this, but like people doing business with each other. And you were telling a cool story about meeting Jake Freeland in the boot camp and how that, how he's a loyal customer.
Yeah, yeah. And, what he originally went to boot camp for is kind of not, I think, where he's at right now. He's kind of had some epiphanies about where he's better served, right? Or how he can better serve. And, but yeah, we sat down very early, set up his processing. He's going in a different direction. He actually didn't process with me at all because of these shifts. And I said to him, because I'm always looking at people's accounts just to make sure. And I called him and I said, Jake, do you want me to shut this off for you? I don't want this to cost you money if you're not there yet. And, he's like, nope, I've got something big coming. I'm like, all right, I'm excited. And so actually, he's building out something. The current solution that I have for him isn't going to work. And so we have to find a new solution. But he was very upfront with the person that's providing his website and things like that we have to use Kristie. He's flat out said, Kristie is my girl. And that really means a lot because there's a much easier way he could have gone. But that's just something that, we've formed along the way. And in a climate where people are very quick to change, there are people out there that are incredibly loyal. And they'll just flat out say, this is my person. You need to make it work so that you work with this person. And I love that.
It's the relationships. It's yeah, that's awesome. That is so cool. Kristie, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
I'm glad you had some time so we could sit down because this ended up going pretty deep.
What, I can talk? Yeah. No, and I appreciate this so much. It kind of brings the whole thing full circle, right?
It absolutely does.
We almost should have filmed this like when I first, joined boot camp
Oh my God. Yeah.
to see it, because it really, I'm, blinders are off, and I'm a lot more vulnerable, right? Just because you have all this experience to be vulnerable. So thank you, because you definitely create that atmosphere to just be real. So I appreciate that.
It's my pleasure. It lights me up when one of my favorite quotes ever by the late great Colonel John Hannibal Smith from the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together. So awesome.
Good quotes never die.
Good quotes never die. That's the one I'll bring up all the time. So,
well, thank you, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.